Okay.
Any more sheets?
Yeah.
Here, you can have this.
Yeah, here
I'm
we
just
go.
gonna take
We
a
have.
picture and I'll get right back.
We'll share here. I put it on the WhatsApp.
I'm probably
it's on the WhatsApp?
I think
I'm not
so.
gonna use it.
Like 99% sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well, sure. Thank you.
I'm 99% sure one on the WhatsApp too. Double check, but I remember.
I believe you sent something. You're right. So.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Thank you.
So here we go. So we have like this. We have two things. We have an ambitious goal today, very ambitious. We're trying to not just understand this week's parsha, not just understand last week's parsha, not just understand 3 weeks ago's parsha, not just understand 4 weeks ago. We're trying to understand 4 weeks into the future. That's what we're trying to do. Okay? We're trying to understand the whole story of Sibur Yitzhak Mitzrayim right here. Okay? Two things. We until now we're focused on the past week's parsha. Now we're focusing on the upcoming. That's going to be hopefully the plan. So this is Parashat Vayechi officially. That's what this year is about. We'll see how much it incorporates the other parashiyot. But you'll see that you really can't talk about one without talking about the other 12. I guess is I don't know what the right amount of numbers, or not right number is. But here we go. We start off like this. We start off with the Gemara Ta'anit. Famous Gemara. Everybody knows how it ends. Nobody knows how it starts. It's on the first page, and it says. And Daf Hey Amud Bet. It says like this. Here we go. I was nice enough again to crop it out. So the first line, last few words says Rav Nachman v'Rav Yitzchak. Havu Yatvi besudata. They were sitting down. They were eating. Yeah. And he says Amar le Rav Nachman Rav Yitzchak. Rav Nachman tells Rav Yitzchak, Lema Mar Milta. Tell us the Dvar Torah. So he says Amar le Hachem Rabbi Yochanan en mesichin besuda Hashem me'aktim kaneh laveshet. He says this is what Rabbi Yochanan says. You can't talk while you're eating. Can't do it. Because what's going to happen? The food's going to go in the wrong pipe, the guy's going to choke, and that's it. So, fine. Batar de Sa'ud, after they ate, Amar le, Hachem Rabbi Yochanan. This is what Rabbi Yochanan said. Yaakov Avinu lo met. Yaakov Avinu didn't die. So he hits him back with a good question. Amar le, so if Nachman says, V'chi bichdi, safdu saftanaya, v'chantu chantaya, v'kavru kivraya. What, for no reason, they eulogized him, buried him, and I got it out of order. They eulogized him, embalmed him, and buried him for no reason. He was still alive. You're not supposed to do that to living people. So Amarle Mikrani Doresh tells it back. No, I got a pasuk. What do you mean? Don't ask me this question. I got a pasuk. Shneimar ve'ata al tirai avdi Yaakov nium Hashem ve'al techat Yisrael. Don't be worried, my servant Yaakov, says Hashem, and don't be afraid, Israel. Ki hineni moshiacha merachok, because I'm saving you from far away. Ve'et zaracha meretz shivyam, and your children I will save from the place of their shivyam means where they became hostages. Really, what? Sorry, bondage. It's a good word. So I will save you and your children from their bondage. So look at this pasuk. You might have missed it. Very strange thing going on in this pasuk. He says, "Don't worry, Yaakov and Yisrael. Don't worry, because I'm going to save you and your kids." No, right here, Yisrael and Yaakov is clearly referring to. It's a pasuk in Yirmiyah, I believe, and it's in Yirmiyah, Perek Lamed Aleph, and it says, "Don't be worried, Yaakov." Clearly referring to Klal Yisrael, the Jewish nation. Don't be worried, the Jewish nation, because I will protect you and your children. No, you are the children, right? What does it mean, and your children? So he says, this is what it means. Makish hu lezaro. It puts him and his children together, right? It makes a hekesh. Ma zaro b'chayim, af hu b'chayim. Just like his children are alive, so too he's alive. So if his kids are alive, he's alive, okay? Now, let's point out a couple of interesting things about this Gemara. I don't know, listen, clearly not such a baki in these things. I don't know, I can't tell you for certain. I don't know how many Gemaras, instead of just saying a Dvar Torah, they say like the background information of what went down in that Dvar Torah. He says, give us a Dvar Torah. He says, you can't talk, we're eating. He said, fine, so they wait. And then when they're done eating, that's when he tells them this Dvar Torah. Just tell them the Dvar Torah. Why do you have to tell me what went down? Tell me, what did they have also? The Gemara doesn't tell us what they had, but I would have liked to know, what were they eating? And I would like to know where they were eating. Was it a good spot? Did they have, was it a good service? What was the service like? You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to tell me the whole... That's the first question. That's the first question that everybody wants to know. The second question everybody wants to know is he didn't answer the question. That means he did a perfect job of not the Jewish thing is to answer a question with a question. He didn't do that. He almost did that. What happened was he says, Yaakov Avinu never passed away. So he says, So why'd they give him? Why'd they bury him? Why'd they eulogize him? Why'd they embalm him? So he says, let me tell you a pasuk. I asked you a good question. You never answered the question. That's the question everybody wants to know. Good. Let's look here at what happens in this week's parasha. So right at the beginning, Yaakov Avinu calls to Yosef and he says, "Don't let me get buried in Egypt." Everybody wants to know, why can't he get buried in Egypt? So we know the Midrash gives us a bunch of reasons. I'm going to give you guys a new reason. Okay. I'm going to give you guys a new reason, okay? At the end of the shiur, when it's done. Why he couldn't get buried in Egypt. Here we go. So the Midrash says like this. The Midrash is, Yaakov is trying to convince him not to let him get buried in Egypt. And he tells him, Al nati kreni b'Mitzrayim, b'shvilcha yaradti l'Mitzrayim. Because of you, I went down to Egypt. Bishvilcha amarti amuta hapa'am. Because of you, I said, I'll die this one time. Okay, there you go. That's it. So he's trying to say, he says, don't let me get buried in Egypt. So what does he say? He says, welcome. How's it going? Okay, we have the chair for, okay, perfect. Good. So, okay. So Yaakov says, don't let me get buried in Egypt. So he tells him, why don't let me get buried in Egypt? And Midrash explains why. He says, it's not why, but he's telling Yosef, I went down to Egypt for you. I said in Egypt, amuta habam, I'll die this one time. Don't let me get buried. So what is this? This is not a conversation. That's the question everybody wants to know about this Midrash. Everybody wants to know that's not how you have a conversation. Good. Let's leave it at that. Let's talk for a minute about the conversation Yaakov Avinu has when he says amuta hapa'am. Okay, so it's in last week's Parashat Vayechi, not printed on the sheets, just because I didn't feel like it. So he says like this. He says it's in Chamishi, and he gets to, it's in Shishi. Yeah, it's in Shishi, and he says, here we go. Vayasor Yosef merkavto vayar likrat Yisrael aviv goshna vayirai lav vayipol atzavarav vayevkal tzavarav od. Right, so he gets to Yaakov, he cries on his neck, and he cries again. He cries a lot. So then he says, "Vayomer Yisrael Yosef amuta hapam." The first thing Yaakov tells Yosef, the first thing when he hasn't seen him in 22 years, what does he say? Now I can die. Now you can die? No thanks. I just got to see you after 22 years. Why is he telling him this? Everybody wants to know. This is, as they say nowadays, is a socially off. You can't say that. You can't say the first time you're seeing your own son after 22 years, first comment is, now I can die. So look at Rashi. Rashi says, well, you can't look at Rashi. I'll look at it for you. He says, the Midrash explains, I thought I would die two mitot. Yaakov Avinu thought he would die in this world and in the next world. Why? Because he had a nevuah. As long as he has kids in his life that don't pass away, he's kosher, he's good. But if his kids pass away in his life, he's gone. Olam hazeh and olam haba, he's finished. Doesn't get olam hazeh and doesn't get olam haba. So now that he sees Yosef is alive, so he's only going to die one time. He says, amuta hapam, I'll die once. Which is, it's not the literal translation. Literal translation of that pasuk is, I will die now. He says, no, or I could die now. He says, no, I will die once. Because the thought process was, Yaakov Avinu would die twice. So now he says, no, I can die once. That's what Rashi says. Let's explain this part of the story of Yosef that we all know to be true, which we need to get a deeper understanding. Like this. Why is it that Yaakov Avinu was told that if he has sons that live throughout his lifetime, he's going to go to Gan Eden, and if he doesn't, if a kid dies in his lifetime, he's cooked? Why is it? So it's Pashut. This is the idea. The 12 children of Yaakov, and Yaakov himself, are something that does... Listen, I'm not going to... The Sifrei Kabbalah, we're going to be careful about how we say this. The Sifrei Kabbalah say that they exist in Olam Hazeh and in Olam Haba. In Shemayim, there's Yaakov and the 12 sons. In here... Yaakov and his 12 sons became the physical embodiment of what they were in Shemayim. If Yaakov didn't live up to that standard, then one of the sons would have been taken away. The fact that one of the sons would have been gone would mean that Yaakov didn't live up to the standard, which means He's not worth keeping around. He's not good, not in this world, not in the next. When Yaakov sees his sons are still alive, all 12 of them, so he knows that he's lived up to the standard. He knows that he's supposed to be alive in this world and in the next. So he sees Yosef, he says he'll die once. The only question is, that we have to have on Rashi is, he's still wrong. He thought he would die 2 times, didn't even die once. So why is he saying he'll die once? He didn't even die once. Now actually it happens to be, I'll tell you, there's I believe it's Rabbeinu Yerucham wrote that when did Yaakov Avinu reach the level that he would not die? It's after the 17 years living in Mitzrayim. In Mitzrayim he spent 17 years and working on himself to the point where he didn't pass away. So at that point, it was still true. You could say that. Okay, I think we still have a better understanding. Ready? Look at this. Second page. It's a pasuk in Yirmiyah, Perek 46, Perek Mem Vav, and it says like this. Yeah, very short. Egla yefefia Mitzrayim. Egypt is a gorgeous cow. Keretz mitzafon bava. There's coming from the north, which is Babylon. The Bavel is going to destroy Egypt, basically. There's cutting down. Keretz means it's going to be cut down. All right, this is going to be cut down. So, okay, look at Rashi in Balak. Hey, Rashi in Parashat Balak. It's always gets thrown out this time of year. He says like this: Kilchoch Hashor, an ox. So I'll give you the context for a second here. When Balak is trying to hire Bil'am, he says, this nation's coming up, they've eaten everybody like an ox eats grass. Like an ox eats grass? How does an ox eat grass? Rashi says like this, Kol mash ashor melachech en bo siman bracha. Whatever the ox eats, it's finished. It doesn't. If your ox grazes on a field, you have to replant the whole field. It's not going to grow back. It's never going to grow back. So look at the Siftei Chachamim. It's on the side of the Rashi. It's right there. It's Zayin. It's mamish right next to the Rashi. And it says, "Lefi she'okeret hakol min hashorish." Well, how do oxes eat? They don't bite. They grab and they rip the what's the word? The grass from its root. Exactly. And you rip it out, and then there's nothing left. So it's not going to grow back because there's nothing left to grow back. It's done. That's how an ox eats. So like this, we understand something that I think everybody knows but never thought about. Why is it that in Egypt, a person would get sold as a slave who would never become a king? Can I ask you how many slaves have become presidents? Not that many. Now I guess Obama. Oh, yeah. That is definitely not. Is that I definitely don't endorse officially. If anyone from, fine, I don't endorse comments like that. No, but the Maisa.
The audio.
Yeah. 1 second. Pause the video. No. The Maisa. What were we saying?
What's the chiddush you're saying?
Right, it's not a big chiddush. And I guess you could say it happened in South Africa with like Nelson Mandela was a prisoner and he became the king, president, whatever. But it's not so common. So like, Egypt had it that if you became a slave, you're never the king. Yeah, I mean those are two opposite sides of the spectrum. It's not likely. So you ready for this? What was Egypt? They uprooted a person completely. Person went to Egypt. They completely forgot everything about themselves, to the point that if they were a slave, they were a slave. They would never not be a slave. Why? Because they got completely uprooted. A guy could go to the lowest depths, get to the highest heights. He just needs to keep in mind who he is, right? But if who he is gets uprooted, he's completely gone. Now all he is right where he is right now. So if he could get reduced to being a slave, so he'll never have a chance to become the king. If he's originally, he's a good guy, he just became a slave right now, so maybe he has a chance. But if somebody gets uprooted, that's it. He's cooked. He's finished. So when Yosef goes to Mitzrayim, what happens? He becomes a slave. How does he become a slave and become the king? Nobody really explains this. Like nobody except for Yosef. Well, how did he do it? What did he accomplish? You ready for this idea?
He went totally against what Mitzrayim.
Exactly. And he never forgot where he was from. That means when he sees, the Midrash tells us, he saw in the glass, in the window. Saw in the window, because I projected my own not insecurities, but I projected my own personal bias over here. nowadays windows have glass. Back in those days, windows didn't have glass in the times of Mitzrayim. So he sees in the window. Why in the window? So I heard it from Rav Aaron Lapiansky that he said that a wall cuts you off from everything else, but a window is an opening inside that wall. Yosef was cut off from where he was, and he sees his father's face telling him, "Don't do the Avirah." Meaning, even when he was in Mitzrayim, he still remembered where he came from. He remembered Yaakov. He remembered who he used to be, and he didn't get cut off. That's what Yosef was. That's what Yosef did. Yosef said, even in Mitzrayim, I won't get cut off. I'm going to be connected. And that's why they couldn't make him, he's the one guy. They couldn't make him go as a slave, he could still become the king. Why? Because he never got disconnected from what he was originally. He's not susceptible to the destruction of the shore. The shore, he uproots everything. Yosef doesn't get uprooted. He stays where he's always connected. That's the thing about Yosef. Now we're going to take this idea, hold that thought, take this idea, and we're going to double down, we're going to triple down on this idea. Okay? Look at this. Yomadaf 54b. Okay, it's still on the second page. It says like this. Okay, no background information. Here we go. Amar Resh Lakish. B'sha'ah shenichnesu nochrim lahechal. When the goyim came into the hechal, yeah? Ra'u kiruvim ham'urin ze bazeh. They saw the kiruvim hugging each other. So what do they say? Hotzi'un lashuk. They took them out to the streets. Ve'amru, and they said, Yisrael halalu, these Jews, shebirchatan bracha. If they bless somebody, they get blessed. V'kilalatan klala. And if they curse somebody, it's a curse. Ya'asku b'dvarim halalu. They have to deal with they're spending time, wasting time on these things. A boy and a girl hugging each other in their holiest place. Miyad hizilum. Shneimar kol mechabedai hizilua kira'u ervatah. All of those who had once respected her, it's a pasuk in Echa, now disrespect her. Why? Because they saw her erva. Okay, so now erva here means, actually, hold off on that. Great. So I'll tell you the question from Eliyahu Benisti Shlita. He asked me this when we were learning this Gemara years ago. He said, that's not an erva. That's not a place to be embarrassed by. Ervata means everybody no longer respects her because they saw something disgusting about her. Disgusting? That's not disgusting. That's the kiruvim. That's the inside the Beit HaMikdash. That's inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim. What do you mean? How is that disgusting? That's a question that he asked. A fantastic question. We're going to redefine it. We're going to redefine it if we're successful. Let's see. Let's go back. What do we have here? Oh, no worries. Hatzlacha. Okay, let's do it this way. It's the third page. The third page has only one Marei Makom. It's the Al-Shich. The Al-Shich tells us like this. What is the deal with Mitzrayim? Right? Why did Klal Yisrael go to Mitzrayim in the first place? That's the question everybody wants to know. So Al-Shich says it's easy. He says like this. Okay, so he gives us a little background history. Why did Avraham Avinu have Ishmael, and why did Yitzchak have Esav? Why is that something that took place? So he says like this. It's impossible. Everybody has a tiny drop, as tahor, as kadosh as they could be. It's impossible they don't have a tiny drop of tum'ah in their neshama, in their nefesh, in their guf. Somewhere there's a little tum'ah. Everybody has it. So what did Hashem do? He took the tum'ah of Abraham Avinu, he created it into one person, and he took it out of Abraham. That's called Ishmael. So now when the next generation comes, Yitzchak, there's no place for tum'ah to come out into the world. Only has to be, we're all went to Ishmael. Second generation comes along, Yitzchak, he has still a little tum'ah, he creates Esav, and then Yaakov comes out. Now, Yaakov, there's no pegam there. Everything is kadosh. His children, everything's kadosh. They didn't have a way to defeat that tiny drop that was left. So what did he do? He sent them to Mitzrayim, And he said, in Mitzrayim, if you can defeat what the Mitzrayim have, good. That Tum'ah goes away. And if not, the Tum'ah stays. Okay? So it's a test. Are you deserving of being a nation? Are you deserving of being Klal Yisrael? Are you deserving of being what we said earlier? The definition of Klal Yisrael is there's something in Shemaim that's completely kadosh, that we are the mirror image of that in this world. And the question is, are you deserving of being the mirror image of that in this world? That was the question. So look at this. Here we go. Ve'ine en safek. He says, Ki b'dor shlishi liYaakov lo haya koach ben nafshotam lichbosh et chelek zu ha'matan. Im shemat haya kasher haya koach ba'avot. What I just told you, which is they didn't have the ability to defeat the Tum'ah themselves. Al ken ma'asahu yitbarach. What did he do? Hinicham kezahav b'toch kur. He put them like gold in a furnace. When you take gold out of the ground, it comes with a lot of rock and ore that you don't need. You just want the gold. So what do? You put it inside the... He says, "Shemafrish hazahav l'tzad echad, v'hasigim l'tzad acher." You put the gold into the furnace. The gold melts, and the ore or whatever, I guess, dissolves or whatever happens to it, and then you're just left with the gold on one side and everything else on the other side, and boom, now you have gold. V'hinei akur zehu Mitzrayim. That's called Mitzrayim. Hinikra kura barzel. Halohu, why is this place a furnace, a smelting furnace? Kisham tokef achitzoniyut hamzuamet. That's where all of the strength of all of the klipos. There you go. See, we said a Hasidic word right over here. Some Hasidus for you guys. We said, right, all the klipos come from Mitzrayim.
They're all concentrated?
They're all concentrated there. Exactly.
You already said Yaakov though,
Yeah, you started off with that,
So that's a...
It's big in Chabad.
Oh yeah, okay. All right. We'll move on from that joke too. Yeah. So he says, Ki al ken nikret ervat haaretz. So that's why it's called ervat haaretz. What does that mean? It's called the ervat haaretz because that's where all the tum'ah comes from. All the tum'ah is concentrated in Mitzrayim. That's where it is. That's where it belongs. So fine. So he says vehu leumat Eretz Yisrael v'shiura. It is the opposite of Eretz Yisrael. Why? Hashem, when He created Eretz Yisrael is the place where all the Kedusha is stuck. It stays in Eretz Yisrael. So the opposite, there has to be an equal and opposite. So what's the equal and opposite? Balance the equation, I got Mitzrayim. Okay? Mitzrayim is, now obviously Egypt is a lot bigger than Eretz Yisrael, but the place where this is called Ervat HaAretz, that's equal size to what Eretz Yisrael is, it's in Mitzrayim. There you go. Now, let me walk you through for a minute why Mitzrayim. We could continue this over here. He says, "Uchituch kesef betoch kur." Just like you. So now I don't know why he's changed the mashal 3 times. He started off with zahav. He went to barzel, which is the lashon of the pasuk. Now he's back to kesef, which is silver. I don't know why he keeps switching the mashal. I have no idea, but this is what it is. So he says, "Ken achshava shekara lamo." That's what happened to Klal Yisrael. When the depths of the impurities had connected to them, they were pulled by the Egyptians like all these sigim here is like the stuff you don't want inside of a furnace, inside of a blasting furnace. Those people are the ones that passed away in Choshech. People, when they died in Choshech, people think like, oh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he killed out all these Jews because they weren't so from, because I don't know why. He's telling you why right here. Because there had to be people that were kicked out. You're not ready to leave Mitzrayim, you guys. We have to get only the pure guys. Only the purest of the pure. Because that's what the nation's going to be. When they became kadosh, yatz'u mimena. That's when they left. ועל לא יצאו כי מאחד מחמישה או מהחמישים או מהדמר מ500 או מ5,000 כי רובם קלטה טומאת מצרים. Most of them weren't deserving. Most of them were gone. So it's either 1 in 5, 1 in 50, 1 in 500, 1 in 5,000.
That's the analogy. You take a big block of metal.
Right.
At the end, you'll get like a
You get a little bit of this. Gold, yeah. Exactly. 100%. That's exactly what's happening right over here. So, wow. Okay, so what is Mitzrayim? Mitzrayim is a test. Are Klal Yisrael deserving of being kadosh? Are they able to be what it was upstairs? Okay, let me give you a couple more background. Yeah, if you look at the pasuk carefully, last week's parsha, they tell you Yaakov Avinu, Yosef is still alive. look at which part he doesn't believe, right? So they tell him like this. They tell him, I want to make sure I'm reading the pasuk exactly. So he says, Vayechi lo lemor. They tell Yaakov, Od Yosef chai, he's still alive. V'chi hu moshel b'chol eretz Mitzrayim, and he's ruling over all of Egypt. Vayafog libo ki lo yamin lahem. He didn't believe them. Which part didn't he believe? Did he not believe that Yosef was alive, or did he not believe that he was moshel in Eretz Mitzrayim? It sounds like he believed he's alive. That part's not crazy, because otherwise you stop right there. You don't keep going. They tell him Yosef's alive. He's ruling over Egypt. Yaakov said, no, he's not. So what does that mean? That means what we said. We said until now that Yaakov Avinu didn't believe it was possible because it was not possible physically for a person to go to Egypt and come out on top. Impossible. Especially somebody sold as a slave. And he knew that Yosef, maybe he knew, maybe he didn't. To what extent, it's hard to tell. The Mefarshim definitely say that he had been concerned. It was suspicious, right? He sends Yosef to go see the brothers. The brothers hate him. It's one of those things, like you have like these guys, like if a guy takes out a life insurance policy on his, on his wife, and then his wife goes missing 2 days later, usually we know what just went down, right? Usually it's not like the investigators don't have to look very hard for, figure out what went down there. So that's what happened over here, right? Yosef, he says, go to your brothers. He knows there's fighting. He knows that they don't like each other. Go to see your brothers. He sends them. What happens? They always come back and say, oh, we don't know what happened. We found this coat. It's torn up. Yeah, I know what you guys did. Either you killed him or you sold him. So they tell him he's still alive. He says, yeah, okay, not such a big deal. So you sold him. Says he's ruling over Egypt. No, I don't believe that. Not possible. Why? Because it wasn't possible. So now, I'll tell you...
Rabbeinu was looking at it from the physical sense, like a slave cannot become a king?
Yes, but it's a physical and a spiritual. That it was not possible for somebody to have that, like we said, we defined it a second ago. Mitzrayim is a place where a person is completely disconnected from what he used to be. That's a spiritual reality as well. Okay, I'll explain that in a second.
Maybe it's physically he can do it, but not maintain his spiritual identity.
Yes, exactly. And we'll get to this in 1 second. Ready? I'm about to blow your guys' minds. You're not, but this is only halfway through the shir. But he says, what does he say? He says, I don't believe that Yosef is alive and ruling over Egypt, because the spiritual, in order for Yosef to beat Egypt, he has to spiritually do it, and that's not possible. So what does he do to convince him? So they tell him whatever. Vayaret ha'agalot asher shalach Yosef laset oto. He sees the agalot. What are agalot? They're wagons. But what does Rashi say? Siman Mesarlim. Exactly, it's a remez. Siman. What were they learning the last moment that they saw each other? The Parashat Egla Arufa. They were learning about an Egla Arufa. So here we go. I say this very quickly. Everybody should be excited because we just talked about an egel a second ago. What is Mitzrayim? What do? They're the egel.
They rip it out.
They rip everything out. So what was he learning? About the egel. He's learning about Egla Arufa, which is a guy is walking on the way. So I didn't spend... Well, okay, sorry. Let's clarify this. A guy dies. We don't know where he died. Sorry, one more time.
Cities.
He died between two cities. We don't know who killed him. One more time. I got this. So we don't know who killed him. We can't solve this murder. So what do? We measure between the cities, whichever one is closest. The elders of that city take a calf, and they chop off its head from the back of its neck, and they throw it into a river. That the river is you're never allowed to plant in that river. So that's the last thing they learned. So why? So, and they say, Yadenu lo shafchu et hadam hazeh ve'einenu lo ra'u. Our hands didn't spill this person's blood, and our eyes didn't see. So what do you mean? The Gemara says, what do you mean? Of course, nobody will choshed that Rav Chaim Kanievsky killed this guy. Nobody will choshed. Let's say it for our city, Rabbi Saban would be the guy to come along, and I didn't kill this guy. Of course, Rabbi Saban, of course you didn't kill the guy. Nobody, Chas v'Shalom would think you killed this guy. So what do the Chachamim say? Because he didn't give him a levaya. What does that mean? He didn't bring him... Accompany him out. Exactly. An escort. So he left him on his own. The guy went on his way, and he left him. What does that mean? How would it have helped? So I walked him 20 feet, 30 feet, 40 feet. That would have been enough for him not to get murdered. He's going to get murdered. What is the vart? The vart is, what's the danger for a traveler? He left everything that he had originally. He's gone. He's not where he is supposed to be. He's on his own. And he's surrounded and somebody goes and kills him. Why? Because he doesn't have his identity. He doesn't have what he used to be. And he's not ready to stand up for himself because we didn't give him what he needs, the confidence to stand up for himself when we sent him on his way. And he was attacked and killed. If we had given him that extra connection to what he was when he started traveling, he would have remembered the kavod that he had when we started sending him on his way, and that would have kept him alive. That's the message that Yosef sends to Yaakov. How do we start the shiur? We said, how did Yosef defeat Mitzrayim? How did he become the king? Because he never got disconnected. What does Mitzrayim do? It disconnects you. He never got disconnected. He was always originally in front of Yaakov. Even in that test, right, when Eshet Potiphar is standing in front of him, he said, no, Yaakov's right here with me right now. I know it. So when Yaakov sees, I don't believe, you can tell me he's alive, fine, but I don't believe for a second that he's defeating Mitzrayim, because that's not possible. What does he say? No, remember what you started me with. The agalot, the eglah rufa. That's what I started with. And the eglah rufa, the message is, because I didn't give him enough of a connection as I sent him on his way. Well, you created that connection when you sent me on my way. That's what Yosef tells Yaakov. That's why, by the way, I think, this is my understanding, a deeper understanding of what the connection between agalot and eglah rufa, because it sounds like it's just that the words sound similar, right. Egel and egel, or agalah. That's what we're taught, and there's for sure truth to that. That's for sure true. But there's a deeper understanding. Why? Because what does it say? If you look, two people sent agalot. Two people, Yosef and Paro. They both sent agalot. And when Yaakov sees, he says, "Vayareta agalot sheshalach Yosef lasetoto." That Yosef sent. He would not have gotten on an agalah, on a wagon that Paro had sent. He would never do such a thing. Why? Because it's dangerous. You're taking the. So let's speak this out for a second. An agalah, a wagon, it's like a car. You're in your own box. Yeah, you're separate from the outside world. So you're traveling. But you're not really traveling. You're not like a traveler who's walking who forgets his original identity. He's not what he was when he left the city. Now he's on his own. No. You're now a traveler in your own box. You have your identity. Says Yosef, take the agalah that I sent. That means you will always be connected. As you're going on this trip to Mitzrayim, the Al-Sheikh makes a big deal about this. Whatever, I don't have time to talk about it. It's last week's Parashat. The Al-Sheikh makes a big deal. He says, don't get on the agalah that Paro sends. Get on the agalah I sent. That as you're going on your journey, look at. I'm the one that's surrounding you. I'm the one that has the connection with you, not Paro. You don't have anything to do with Paro. That's the message he sends back to Yaakov. He says, "Get in my agalah." That's how I stayed around. I stayed around because you taught me to always be connected to you. And when I'm in Potiphar's house and there's nobody there, I saw you. That's the message that Yosef has. That's I was able to defeat Mitzrayim. That's why, in this week's Parasha, what's the bracha that Yaakov gives Yosef? Bechor shoro hadarlo. Yosef is a shore as well. He is a shore, he's an ox. Why? Because Yosef, he's the ox that out-oxed Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim is an egel, they try to eat, they try to take you out of your shoresh. Yosef took them out of their shoresh. He defeated them. Now how? Interesting connection, it's not a coincidence, but we'll talk about it for a second. What is Mitzrayim? The Irvat Haaretz, right? The I guess you could say it's like the disgusting part of the land. That's the normal translation, but take it literally. It's literally a place where the Irva is, which means that the reason Yosef defeated Mitzrayim, where did Yosef get his test? With the Irva. He stayed away from doing the in a not kosher relationship, immoral relationship. That's what Yosef stayed away from. So how did he defeat the Irva of Mitzrayim, the immoral nature, I guess, of Mitzrayim? Because he did not go to the immoral nature. He's connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu always. Let's speak this out further, okay? I didn't find this Al-Sheikh last night. I was looking for it for a while. Couldn't find it. There's an Al-Sheikh in Sefer Bereshit somewhere. I'm assuming it's Parashat Bereshit, but he says that why is it that a person is embarrassed by his own erva? Why is that the case? A person is naturally embarrassed. What does that mean? You ever see like when they it's actually a war crime. The Geneva Convention considers it a war crime. When you're taking prisoners, you can't make them naked. You're not touching them, nothing. Just strip them down their clothes. You can't do it. It's a war crime. Why? Because a person is embarrassed. Even a guy's prisoner but of their own erva, a person's embarrassed. Wow, welcome. So, a person, so Sheikh says, you know why? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, here, sit right over here, we got you over here. 1 second, give me a second here. No, not at all, no worries. It's perfect. So Sheikh says like this, Sheikh says, what is it? What was a person created for? A connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We saw this already. We saw this many times. That a connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the best reward a person can ever experience. A person can experience it. We saw it. We'll see it very much when we get to Parashat. That a person is meant to experience that in this world specifically. Not supposed to wait till Olam Haba. Just to experience it in this world. And so that's the ultimate reward. Amen. A person wastes his time going after the part of the body where a person experiences pleasure in this world. That's so embarrassing. The neshama deeply knows that that's embarrassing. It's embarrassing that a person who's created for such great reward, and he wastes his time with something that it seems to be rewarding in Olam Hazeh, but it's not real reward. It's not the real deal. It's so embarrassing to the neshama that he would waste his time with that. So what comes out is like this: a deeper understanding of what I started with, which is Mitzrayim uproots you. Why? Because a person who goes after the tavot, that specific tava, the erva, that person is making the mistake of forgetting his original connection. That means he's originally connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the purpose. That's the ultimate reward. And he forgets that. And he goes after, things that are not meant to be the ultimate reward. That are not meant to be the purpose of Olam Hazeh, of creation. That's how Mitzrayim gets the guy. He uproots him. He says, go after, forget about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Just enjoy whatever you see in front of you. That's a mistake. That's the biggest mistake. And so Yosef, Davka says, I'm not going to forget. I'm going to stay connected. Okay? Let me triple and quadruple down on this point in a way that you haven't seen yet. Ready? Here's the question. We started off with this. They saw the Kiruvim. So the Gemara tells us, when the Goyim got to the Hechal, they saw the Kiruvim, that they were hugging each other. They said, the Jews have pictures of or images that are hugging each other. They said, ugh. And the Gemara says, at that point, it said, all those that had once respected her, now they don't even respect her at all, because they saw the erva. So ready for this? The Ben Ish Chai, so we said, what do you mean? That's not how it works. So look at the Ben Ish Chai, Ben Yoyada. It's the second page, and he says, Daf Nudal Mudbet. Okay, I printed out the whole thing. We can go over the whole thing. It'll be fast. Here we go. Yesh Lomar. Sorry, Yesh Lakshot. Yeah, Yesh Lakshot. Alomram Yisrael Halalu. They said these Jews. Yeah, which other Jews? These Jews. Just say the Jews. Yisrael Halalu. V'day Lomar Sham Shem Yisrael Bilvad. They could just said Yisrael. Why did they say these Jews? Just say Jews. Ve'od Mash Eichut Yesh Dvarim Elu Shel Bracha V'Klala. Why did they say it like this? These Jews, that their bracha is a bracha and their klala is a klala. Just say the Jews. They spend time with this. That's it. You don't have to tell me the whole right. So he says. Im ha'inyan asher ra'u be'elu hatzurot v'nir'ali b'siyata d'shmaya tehem yod'im hapogem. The goyim knew this. They knew. Okay, this is good. We'll talk about this a different time. The goyim knew. Hapogem bibrit hapogem bibrit hamaor biznut. Somebody who messes around, he ruins his brit by doing znut. He immoral relationships. Nifgam halashon shelo. His lashon also gets ruined. Shehu mechuvan kenegdo, which is they're connected somehow. V'lachen en tfilato nishmat. Therefore, Hashem doesn't answer his tefillot. Ve'en birchato biracha. Then klala. If a guy is pogem in his brit, he can't curse anybody anymore because nobody's listening. He's cursing. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's not interested. So, ve'af al pi shehem yod'im she'Yisrael kilkilu biznut v'arayot kodem ha'chorban. They knew before the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed that there were Jews that had messed around. They knew about that. Im kol zeh yod'im devada yesh be'em tzadikim shelo chatu. They knew that, but there was the tzadikim that didn't. Okay, so again, were the goyim making this cheshbon? Yes, but it doesn't seem like you would have take a random goy and be like, make the cheshbon. Okay, fine, but they were. It says, ulkach hatzadikim shebahem tfilatam nishmat u'yirchatam bracha v'kilam klala. The moment that they saw the Keruvim hugging each other, they said, oh, everybody there is involved with Zechut. That's what they said about the Jews. Everybody's involved with Zechut. Why? That's why they made, in the Beit HaMikdash, the Keruvim hugging each other. Not anybody can just walk into the Beit HaMikdash. Who goes to the Beit HaMikdash? The from guys. Exactly. The Kohanim Gedolim. They're the ones that are going there. Not those guys who do the Znut. It's the Gedolim. You see from this, everybody there is, nobody's good. Till now they thought, there's a couple of Jeffrey Epsteins, but there's also a lot of from guys. Now they said, they're all involved in Znut. That's what they said. They saw, that's what they said, said, if they do that, then their lashon is also no good. They didn't just say Jews. They said these Jews. You know why? Talking about the fromest guys. They looked at Rabbi Saban and Rabbi Ovadia, and they said, these guys, not a big deal. I said, these guys are the ones, the from guys are the ones doing this? It says, therefore, you have to say, they said, we don't have to worry about these guys anymore. That's what was the takeaway. The takeaway wasn't, these guys are gross. The takeaway was, they're gross, therefore, we don't have to worry about them. They could curse us. Let them. Right. That's what they're worried. We started off, right? What are they worried about? There's the Kol Yaakov Yadayim Midei Esav. They knew there's Yadayim Midei Esav. They're worried about the Kol Yaakov. The moment they see Keruvim in the Beit HaMikdash hugging each other, we don't have to worry about the Kol Yaakov either. Because if a person's pogem on the Brit, also pogem on the Lashon, he's done. He can't curse us anymore. I'm not worried. So look at this. So it says, why did this happen? Says the Ben Ishchai. Kimina Shemayim Nasaken Bakiruvim. Hashem did this on purpose. Hashem wanted the Goyim to make that mistake. He wanted them to think this. They'll do whatever they want. They wouldn't be worried about us. He didn't want them to hold back. So he made them have this thought process on purpose. He wanted them to say, there's nobody left over there. They deserve it, and then really give us a good patch, so that they get the real punishment. That was the idea. The idea was, don't hold back, Goyim, go for it. Let me tell you. How do we start this Dvar Torah? We had the Gemara says, Yaakov Avinu lo met. The Gemara doesn't start Yaakov Avinu lo met. It says, we don't talk while eating. Why are you telling me about talking while eating? What are you talking about? Just tell me the Dvar Torah. Don't tell me the whole. So, Pasha, you ready for this? How does a person talk? The throat begins the discussion. Exactly. What is a person's throat? It's a connection between his neshama and his goof. And neshama, primarily resides in the brain, or in the head. And there's parts of it that are connected to every single organ, So a person's heart is very connected to the neshama. His kaved, his liver, very connected as well. The kidneys, the klayot, also connected. Each one of these, the evarei kul, the digestion organs, these are all important. Everyone's important. But where does the neshama primarily reside? In the head, in the moach. And the person has to be careful that the connection between the neshama and the goof is connected. That means almost all the goyim, they're able to have a disconnect between the neshama and the goof. Esav Rasha, for example, careful with what you say over here. Esav Rasha, what did he do? When he died, his head was put into Gan Eden, into the Me'at HaMachpelah. It was buried with Avraham Avinu, Yitzchak Avinu, and Yaakov Avinu. All the imahot was buried with Esav, his head, not the rest of his body. Why? Because his moach, his neshama, never made a mistake. He always thought about deep ideas and philosophical. Wow, he's sort of almost approaching a very whatever. This is almost a Kantian idea. That's what he would say. Right? Wow, that's so true. It really is a Kantian idea. Wow, he's so smart. That was his stuff. But the moment that everything else was, the moment you could turn off the neshama, boom, the rest was garbage. So that's every goy. Every goy can have the most tum'ah experience, but he goes to university, he goes to a thing, and he says, "Wow, this is almost like a tremendous idea over here." That a Jew is the opposite. A Jew says the neshama and the guf have to stay connected always, never disconnection. How do you make sure there's not that disconnection? You can't choke. Guys choking, chas v'shalom. So then the neshama and the guf are disconnected. Can't breathe. That's why he passes away, because the neshama and the guf have got disconnected for long enough that the guy, chas v'shalom, the guy's gone. So the Gemara is telling us, how did Yaakov Avinu not pass away? His neshama and his guf were so connected always that there was nothing to pass away. So the question that he follows up with, he says, but why did they bury him? Why did they eulogize him? Why did they? It doesn't have to answer that question. It's not important, because that's not really the point. Whatever they did, whatever the goyim saw, and whatever the goyim understood, not so important. What's important is, I'm telling you that there's a fact. Yaakov Avinu is alive. How is he alive? Because he says, I'm connecting him to his children. What are his children? We are the mirror image of Bnei Yisrael that exists in Shemayim. Yaakov Avinu is the physical embodiment of that in Shemayim, that which is in Shemayim, here on earth. And so he can't pass away, because there's nothing to pass away. Because how does a person pass away? The part of his neshama that's kadosh goes to Shemayim, and the part that's not kadosh, the guf that's not kadosh, gets recreated, it gets destroyed and recreated and comes back into Chiyat HaMetim. Well, by Yaakov, there's nothing to get to separate. Everything is kadosh. So maybe they gave him a hesped, and they gave him they buried him and etc. But there's nothing to die. It's all alive. It's all kadosh. And that's why the Gemara starts off with that part of the lesson. That's why the Ben Ish Chai says that's not shayach if you pogem the brit. The guy's pogem his brit. The guy does things he's not supposed to. Well, then the whole thing gets separated. Why does the lashon get destroyed? Because the lashon is that part of the neshama interacting with the world. That's where the neshama interacts with the world. It speaks. Well, if a guy's pogem the brit, the part that's his real connection to this world, well then his neshama also has no connection to this world properly. That's what the lesson that the goyim took away. They said, these guys have no connection. They think, right, this is the ervata that they thought they saw. They thought that they saw these Jews. They think that they're the spiritual embodiment of what happens in Shemayim. They're not. They're also not so kosher. That's what they said. We don't have to worry about these guys at Kol Yaakov. See, we were right. Mizalzel, they don't no longer respect us. But what they didn't understand was the opposite. The love that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has for us. We'll explain the Kiruvim a different time. We won't go too deep into it now. But it's the love that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has for us. That's what it is. That's how the Gemara in Tanit starts. But before this introduction, it's an introduction to Rish Lakish, that they used to say when Klal Yisrael came by Yom Kippur, they would open the Heichal and they would show them the Keruvim hugging each other. They'd say, see, that's how much HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves you. Why? Why is it a boy and a girl hugging? So we'll discuss it a different time. But the idea is that there's a deep love that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has for us that's so kadosh. And they thought of it as, no, it's tum'ah, it's disgusting. So look here, let's finish this out. Let's round out this shiur. We'll talk about Mitzrayim one more time. We'll talk about the Galut. We'll talk about Yosef, and we'll close this out. Okay, so it says the Zera Shimshon. It's the first page, and he says Ve'im Tomar Shatarotze lekovreni b'Mitzrayim. He's dealing with the midrash we started with. Midrash says, Yaakov says, don't bury me in Egypt. Why? So you can't bury me in Egypt. I came to Egypt for you, and I said Amuta Hapam for you. To Yosef. So it says, don't bury me in Egypt. So it says, if Yaakov got buried in Egypt, Galut would have never happened. Not possible. It says, hello adirabah. So he says, you might want to... So Yosef has actually a good reason to bury Yaakov in Mitzrayim. So there's never any Galut. It says, no. Hello adirabah. Ani amarti amuta hapam kishara'iti panecha. He says, I could die now that I saw your face. Why? Kilamar, kishara'iti bizohar panecha. Sheloch atata be'irva. When I saw, wow, you're so kadosh, you didn't do the irva. Ve'yadati ki bizchutcha yihyu nitzolim Klal Yisrael. Now I know Klal Yisrael will be saved. Amarti amuta apam k'dei she'atchil hagalut miyad. He said, I could die right now. Yaakov said, Because I'd rather the galut start right now. As soon as Yaakov dies, the galut is beginning. So it tells Yosef the opposite. You got it backwards. You think, don't start any galut, don't specifically bury Yaakov in Mitzrayim, and then no galut. Sheleimah Yisrael literally says, no, you got it backwards. I would have preferred to have died right now. Now that I know that you are kadosh. Says Sha'arei Tam Hagalut Hu Mipnei She'i Efshar Lizchot Benachalat Yisrael. Im Lo Yidei Yisrin Dahainu Hagalut. The purpose of galut is we're not ready to live in Eretz Yisrael yet. Amen. We're not ready to live in Eretz Yisrael yet. We're not there. So he says, Inami shelo yicholim lekabel haTorah ad shizdakchu bekur habarzel kanoda. Ve'Yaakov haya rotzeh lemaher zman kavat haTorah v'nachat Yisrael. He wanted us to go there. U'mishum hachi haya rotzeh lemaher tchilat hagalut. So if Yaakov Avinu gets buried in Egypt, never going to be any galut. Why? Because Yaakov Avinu. So let's speak this out. Yaakov Avinu is. Where does the galut come from? It's the saying: are you guys able to go to the most tameh place and stay kadosh? Well, if Yaakov Avinu gets buried in Mitzrayim, well, all the tumah just went away. He's so kadosh, he's going to cancel out all the tumah. So the whole thing of Mitzrayim never starts. So says Yaakov, no, don't bury me in Mitzrayim. It's not kedai. It's the opposite. I'd rather that Klal Yisrael get punished and be zocheh after those punishments to go to Eretz Yisrael and to get the Torah. That's what Yaakov Avinu says. Let's hear the question.
We were ready.
Saying we were ready.
He saw Yosef, you're still kadosh.
Oh, so no. So not that we were ready. We were ready for the process to begin. That means we were ready to get cleaned up now. We weren't kadosh yet. We weren't ready yet to go to Eretz Yisrael. But we were ready to get the process beginning, right? As we saw in the Al-Shich. I don't know if were you here for the Al-Shich, that he said that the purpose of Mitzrayim was to test us. It was to clear out all of the bad stuff. Take out all the bad stuff. Okay. Exactly. It's all the tumah. Brings it like a magnet, attracts like a magnet, all the tumah, and then all the kedusha is only left. And that's why 1 out of 5, 1 out of 50, 1 out of 500, 1 out of 5,000 Jews had to die in Mitzrayim. Because those guys, they're all tameh. They're not deserving to leave. Only the guys that are kadosh, they're deserving to leave. Those are the guys that make it out of Mitzrayim. But the other guys, I can't say, whatever. They didn't make it. There's nothing you can't leave. You're stuck here. That was the idea. That's why we had to leave that moment. We couldn't leave it, stay an extra second. Because the tumah was too strong. It was going to take the kedushim as well. And so let's close off with this. Here we go. This is a preview into the next coming up weeks. Why is Mitzrayim the place where the tumah is the strongest? You ready? Every single place on earth relies on water. Here in New York, we get water so much we don't think about it. Where I'm from in LA, there's always a drought. It's always don't use water in your shower, and then you see the guy that has like the lawn that's all wood chips because he doesn't want to. I don't put green grass because that uses up water. And then the mayor gets on and says, "Guys, it's so hard. There's no water." That's how it is in LA. We're aware of the fact that water doesn't come down. If water doesn't come down from Shemayim, we're done. We're toast. There's no malach in the world that's in charge of water. That's a Gemara and Tanit a little bit earlier. No malach in the world. It comes from Hashem. So what happens? Every nation on earth needs a Kadosh Baruch Hu. They daven, they pray. Now they do it through their Avodah Zarah, but at least they're thinking about a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Except for which one nation? Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim don't need water from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Nile comes up and feeds the Mitzrayim. So what do? They worship the Nile. They love the Nile. Everything's the Nile. Why? Because they're able to say HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We don't even need to think about him. That's what's called the Erva. Because they get separated from the original Kedusha. There you go. Boom. The original Kedusha. What was that?
The biggest disconnection.
Exactly. It comes from the Nile. Because I can say, I don't need the Kedusha. I don't need to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I can just live myself. They're called the Ervat Haaretz now. Oh, I don't even need to think about HaKadosh Baruch Hu anymore. What did Yosef do to defeat them? He said, I'll never forget about a connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'll always be connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When he gets tested with Potiphar's wife, he says, no. I remember Yaakov. I remember what I was supposed to be. That's what happens with Yosef. That's what happens with Yaakov. He says, don't bury me in Mitzrayim. I don't want to be in Mitzrayim. Because he says, my goof is so kadosh, it can't be in a place like this. And it needs to go to, so this is also a very Jewish idea. That means that the goof is kadosh. It means if a person doesn't believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu at all, when he's alive, definitely wants to be in a good spot. Wants to be in a good, nice comfortable house. The moment he gets buried, the guy passes away. Okay, so do whatever he wants with his goof. It doesn't care. What does he care? He's dead, right? There's literally a Greek philosopher named Diogenes who when they told him how does he want to be buried, he says, throw me over the city walls. So they told him, but the animals are going to eat you. So he said, yeah, if the animals eat me, I'll beat them away with a stick. He said, well, I think Abba has heard me say this a few times, but he says, if you beat them away with a stick, you're going to be dead. So he said, if I'm dead, what do I care? That's what he told him. So, yeah, just throw me over the city walls. That's what they did. They needed cleanliness. You can't have a guy in the city because if he's dead, there's going to be all kinds of diseases. So you throw him over the city walls. Who cares? That's how the Goyim look at it. We say, no, there's Kedusha in the goof. We need the goof to be Kadosh. We need to keep it as it is. We need to protect it. We need to bury it in the right place. In Eretz Yisrael, not in Mitzrayim. And he says, that's why Yaakov says, so now let's speak this out for one more time. Why did Yaakov say, when he sees Yosef, I can die now? Because the whole vort was, he's not going to die anymore. Because until now he thought that he's going to die in Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba because he's not living up to the Kedusha of the Yaakov Avinu lives in Eretz Yisrael, lives in Shemayim. He's not the Yaakov Avinu lives in Shemayim. That's what he thought. He sees Yosef, and he sees that Yosef didn't do an Aveirah, which he thought was not possible. He thought it's not possible Yosef goes to Mitzrayim and wins. And he sees Yosef didn't do Aveirah, he says, now I can die. Because now I know that even in Yaakov Avinu's death, Yaakov Avinu is still alive. And Yaakov Avinu can't die. It's not possible. And Yaakov Avinu says, don't bury me in Mitzrayim now because there's a Kedusha now. It's important. Keep me as it is. That's the idea. That's the powerful idea of what's going on. That's what the Erva wants to do. The Mitzrayim wants to make us forget HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the ultimate test. Do you still believe HaKadosh Baruch Hu when you're done? So we'll wrap it up with this. Quick sneak preview. What did the Mitzrayim do in the last pasuk in this week's parsha? They say, Yosef passes away. Vayamot Yosef b'me'ava eser shanim. Passed away at 110. Vayachantu oto. They embalmed him. They put him in a tomb in Mitzrayim. But the thing is, it's actually not a real tomb. They took him and they tossed him into the Nile River. And how did Moshe get Yosef? Said Alei Shor. Said come up the ox. Why ox? Because the Mitzrayim were trying to do what? They were trying to, even in Yosef's death, trying to separate him from his Kedusha. And they said, put him in the Nile. That's the biggest place where you separate him from Kedusha. And what did Moshe Rabbeinu say? Come back up, you ox. Because the ox they destroyed the ox of Mitzrayim. That even in his death, he said, defeat the ox of Mitzrayim. Uproot me the Mitzrayim. That was the message of, that's why, okay, wait, sorry. Important. I have to say this one last point. Very important. This is the message of Galut. That means a person's in Galut, it's a test. Is he going to forget his connection to Kadosh Baruch Hu? Is he going to remember? Which is why Yosef is the one that said, Pakod yifkod Elokim etchem. Hashem will remember you. It had to be Yosef. Because he's the one that said, I didn't, just like I didn't forget, so too you will not be forgotten. He gave him a Mesorah, you will be saved. And when Yosef sees Binyamin, he cries twice on his shoulders. On his necks. He cries on his necks, right? Veipola tzavarav. One more time. Veipola tzavirei Binyamin achiv vayef. Tzavirei is not the correct term. Tzavarav is the plural, which means his neck. And then tzavar means his neck. Or just neck. But tzavirei means necks. Yival Binyamin's necks, so the Gemara says, his neck is the Bet HaMikdash. Both Batei Mikdashot. Why? Because only Yosef understood that the Bet HaMikdash would get destroyed twice. Why? Because Klal Yisrael didn't have the Kedusha necessary to keep. Why is it a neck? Why is the Bet HaMikdash a neck? It's the connection between Olam Haba and Olam Hazeh. Just like the Neshama and the Guf is connected. So Yosef says, I'm going to cry over Binyamin's neck getting disconnected. Both necks. Because that means Klal Yisrael didn't keep what I kept, which is the Kedusha, the original Kedusha that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave them, that they never forgot. And so he's crying over the Galut happening twice because Yosef knows the Galut. But he's also the truth of how we're going to get out of the Galut, which is we're going to remember we're always connected to the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Whatever it is that the Goyim have to offer us, for Yosef it was the Erva. For us, it's a lot more. It's a lot more. Go outside, step outside, see what it is. We have it. The Goyim today have it a lot better than the Goyim in Yosef's time had it. So the temptations are much more. Not just Avirot, just Tam in general. Yeah? That guys nowadays...
Values, lifestyle, everything.
Exactly.
What's important, what's not.
Exactly. This is the truth. If a guy lives his life and he's from and he keeps Torah, Mitzvot, and Shabbat, and kosher. And what does he live his life for? Every year he goes on a vacation, a carnival cruise, the kosher one, of course, kosher. You know, it goes on a carnival cruise. That's not. That person has fallen into the mistake of forgetting where he's from. That's not the reason HaKadosh Baruch Hu created you. He didn't create you so you could go to the cruise. He created you for much greater things. And you're getting distracted by the Ervav Mitzrayim, which is much more today, much stronger today. And we should be Zochet to remember, no, we're created for a much greater purpose, a much greater reason. We should be Zochet.